Good morning, Eric Arnold in the politics barn here in the wee hours of Saturday, the 13th of August. This episode I'm entitling, Who is Doug Mastriano? We have two incredibly important races here in the state of Pennsylvania. This is the politics barn. It is located in the state of Pennsylvania. I am Eric Arnold. I have a poli-sci degree. I have a history degree as along with that. So I'm an expert somewhat on the politics here in PA. And incredible races. Probably two easily top five most important races in the country in this midterm cycle. So we're going to do the governorship here tonight in that I'm going to give you who I think Doug Mastriano is. I have clearly endorsed Mastriano if you've ever seen any other episode of the Politics Barn. But I wanted to present to you who this guy is, basically. The sources I'm using is his website, a little bit of Wikipedia. Wikipedia, frankly, Mastriano's page is written by the Shapiro campaign, that his opponent. Wikipedia, in case you've been under a rock, is controlled by liberals, Democrats. They control everything that gets written onto Wikipedia. So it's basically what Shapiro wants you to know about Doug Mastriano. In other words, you read that and you go, oh my God, what a monster. Even though, some of the things they write on there basically, wow, he wants to withdraw from the regional greenhouse gas initiative as if that's a bad thing, but more on that later. So I'm going to go into Mastriano's bio, resume, record in this video. Then we're going to do Shapiro in a subsequent video. Just to kind of give you a little more information about these people, because you don't get it. Really, right now, there is only one side of the story being told, and that's the Shapiro side. Doug Mastriano has no campaign money. He cannot advertise. He has no money. So the only ads you see here in Pennsylvania are Shapiro ads. So I'm going to do what little bit I can do to get Doug Mastriano's name and bio and record out there. I'm going to try to do it somewhat neutrally. I'm going to be transparent. I told you I support Mastriano, so, I'm not going to say, hey, I think he sucks. But let's get into it. I'm going to try not to make this a 50-minute video. So let's get into it here. All right, Mastriano, born 1964 in New Jersey. New Jersey, another New Jersey guy. Grew up in Hightstown, New Jersey. That's in Mercer County. That's Trenton is the county seat of Mercer County. So Hightstown, probably about 5,000 to 6,000 people live in Hightstown. Small town. Grew up in small town America. Graduated in 1982 from Hightstown High School. I'm going to guess that's a public school. It sounds like a public school. Went to Mercer County Community College. From his website, he says, let's see. So while he was a child, he was an Eagle Scout, worked as a paper boy, a janitor, a security guard, a short order cook, pizza delivery, and dishwasher. So looked like he hustled here and there to make a buck. Went to community college. After community college, then he went to Eastern University. That is, according to Wikipedia, a religious Baptist school in the Philadelphia suburbs, down near King of Prussia, if you know where that is. And he graduated with a BA in history in 1986. Really, this guy's resume isn't that much different than mine up to this point. Well, at any rate, he was in the ROTC at Eastern University, So that gave him his in to the Army. So after he graduates from Eastern University, he then goes into a 30-year Army career. Let's see, he was, first they sent him to West Germany. He was over there. Then he was part of, let's see. They sent him to Iraq as part of Desert Storm in 91. His regiment led the attack against Saddam's Republican Guard forces. After he was done over in Iraq, they sent him to Washington for about 10 years or more. After 9/11, they says here, he was the lead planner for the operation to invade Iraq via Turkey. Well, that sounds important. I don't think we ultimately did invade via Turkey, but apparently he was involved in the planning of the invasion of Iraq the second time around, so sounds important. He then went on in the mid-aught decade to serve with NATO. He was deployed to Afghanistan 3 times during the aught decade, spent 3 years in Afghanistan. Director of NATO's Joint Intelligence Center in Afghanistan, leading 80 people from 18 nations. On his own initiative, he led 7 relief operations to help Afghan orphans. And then after he was done in Afghanistan, there in 2009, then he went to the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where he basically taught history and strategy and what have you. And he taught there from 2009 to 17 when he got out of the Army after 30 years as a colonel. So that sounds kind of impressive. Now, why did he go to, well, let's skip here. He wrote 3 books. 3 books on World War I. Said he wrote 30 articles on strategy and whatnot. So you can't be a total idiot if he's written 3 books. So I would imagine the guy has some basic intelligence. You get 4. He has 4 different master's degrees in history. He has a PhD in history. So you can't be an idiot. All right, what else? All right, now why did he go to Carlisle? Well, the answer to that is Doug is married to Rebecca Stewart, whose ancestors settled this region of Pennsylvania in 1732. Rebecca was a chaplain with the Marketplace Ministries and Martin's famous pastry shop. Well, that's your answer. His wife's from Carlisle, I would imagine. So, I don't know. My wife would find that a selling point, I would think. This guy does what his wife says. So, honey, I'm done in Afghanistan. Where should I deploy to now? How about Japan? How about Timbuktu? How about we go home to Carlisle? Okay, so that's what he did. So that's why he's now in Pennsylvania. He's been in Pennsylvania from 2009 to 22. He's been a Pennsylvania resident. So retired from the Army in 17. Then he ran for the United States Congress in May of 2018. It was one of these wide open races where a guy retired and there's like 7 guys running for the United States Congress slate or slot. He lost, finished 4th. It wasn't that far off. You know, the winner had about 21% of the vote. He had 15. So, and there 2 other guys had like 18 to 19. So he went way off, but he lost. And then in, I believe it was 2019, there was an open slot for state senate. And he jumped in for that. And this time was not opposed in the primary and went on to beat the Democrat in a heavily Republican district. So in 19, he joins the state senate. And that's where I met the guy. You know, in other words, He joins in 19 as a fresh-faced, brand-new senator who is pretty fresh out of the Army, 30 years in the Army, Colonel Mastriano, and then the world ended. And this is the guy who I saw out front speaking out against these crazy, illegal, unconstitutional, immoral lockdowns and edicts and orders and mandates. He was the guy saying, this is wrong. This is not the way this country should be run. I didn't see the Republican leadership in Pennsylvania stepping up and fighting the Wolf administration. I sure as hell didn't see my local Republican representative. He was on a milk carton, that guy. He still is. I haven't seen Mark Gillen in 3 years. He stopped taking my calls 2 years ago. That dude's on a milk carton somewhere. You never see that guy unless there's a bridge to dedicate or a pothole to consecrate. That freaking guy. But Mastriano was the guy out there saying, this is wrong. We need to get together and do something about this. Otherwise, we're going to be locked in our homes forever. I give him credit for organizing the Reopen PA group. I give him credit for getting the constitutional amendment on the ballot in 2021, the primary election, May 2021, there was a constitutional amendment on the ballot stating that, hey, if this passes, this eliminates or limits the governor's ability to declare an endless emergency, that he can't just declare an emergency forever. That's not allowed if the people vote for this constitutional amendment. Well, we did, and it passed. And I give this guy credit because I don't think it would have passed if this guy wasn't out organizing and galvanizing the opposition to these horrific lockdowns that the governor, if that hadn't passed, the governor of Pennsylvania, Wolf, he would have just kept the lockdowns in place. For us here in PA, most of the pandemic ended in May of 21 when Wolf was stripped of his powers to just endlessly lock us in our homes and force us to wear masks forever. And I give Mastriano all the credit in the world for that. And that's his claim to fame. That's why he's running for governor. What else do we have here? He's an active member of his church. He lives near Caledonia State Park in Pennsylvania. According to the Democrat Wikipedia, it's some kind of Mennonite church. Mastriano is an unabashed Christian of some kind. I don't know what sect or whatnot. Clearly the guy believes in God. He believes in heaven and hell. He believes in Jesus Christ. So he's not afraid to tell you that. That's pretty obvious. I mean, it says here his kid went to Liberty University. That's a religious school. His kid is named Josiah, graduate of Liberty University. He also an Eagle Scout, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of his bio, if you will. Let's give you a quick rundown on what he wants to do here. At the top of his website, he says, return to normalcy, reject all the Biden administration and the CDC orders and edicts, eliminate all the executive orders by the Wolf administration regarding the pandemic, ban all government and school mask mandates, fantastic. Ban all COVID-19 mandates on vaccinations, again, fantastic. Expand access to off-label early treatment drugs for COVID. I guess that means no more war on things like ivermectin or these other things that may or may not work, but by God, you're not allowed to even think of using it. So, giving you more power to determine what you want to use in way of medicine, you and your doctor. He's big on election integrity. Not my thing necessarily, but this is one of the reasons why this race is so important to you people not outside of Pennsylvania. Or you people outside of Pennsylvania. In 2 years, Pennsylvania is going to be a swing state in the most important presidential election since 1860. And every year we say that, but every year it's true because it just gets more and more important until the country eventually is probably just going to tear itself apart. So in 24, that'll be the most important election in well over 100 years. Pennsylvania, key state. The governor controls a lot of power in these elections. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, for example, probably Biden was able to move the needle 2-3 points in his favor simply by the flood of Zuckerbucks that came into this state. Zuckerbucks, what's that? That's private money by billionaires, leftist billionaires, that went to Democrat counties. Well, it didn't all go to Democrat counties. Oh, well, you're right. 99 cents went to Democrat counties and like a penny went to Republican counties. So, yeah, it didn't all go, just almost all. And what it did was basically a registration drive, a giant Democrat get out the vote effort, which helped them win. Well, that's not fair. That's not allowed, or shouldn't be allowed. But Tom Wolf, of course, knowing that this is helping his candidates win, let it go on. Well, this guy's not going to allow that to happen. He's going to ban the use of private funds to influence elections like that. Now, the way that's going to happen in this cycle is it's not going to come from Zuckerberg or what have you. It's going to come from the federal government. They're going to be billions, millions and millions and millions of dollars pumped into the get out the vote drive, but it'll be coming from the federal government because the Democrats control the federal government right now. So, were Mastriano the governor, that would be stopped in 24. In other words, the feds would pump the money into the state to drive up the turnout in Democrat counties, and Mastriano is going to say, no, you're not doing that, unless you help all the 67 counties. But you're not going to pump in your money just into Philadelphia County. So that's one of the election integrity things that he's for. He's going to try to get rid of the mail-in voting with the help of the General Assembly. Well, here is a criticism I got to tell you. In the interest of fairness, we try not to be totally biased here in the politics barn. Mastriano voted for the mail-in voting law. He was new. It probably is something he regrets, but the way that was sold to him, I'm sure, was that the Republican leadership made a deal with Tom Wolf that in order to allow mail-in balloting, they would eliminate straight party ticket voting. So the Republican calculus apparently being that, well, we're losing a lot of these down-the-ballot races because everybody in the cities are just voting straight ticket. And let's force them to check every box. And we know a lot of them are just too lazy to do that, so they'll leave a lot of them blank and we'll have a better chance. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but that was their calculus. And the Democrats said, yeah, we'll make that deal. You're going to let us vote by mail? You're going to let us vote by mail? Okay. Knowing that they would be able to cheat incredibly much more with mail-in voting, and of course that's what's happened. So I bet he regrets his vote. I mean, if I had to guess, Mastriano's brand new, and the leadership probably just said, hey man, you need to get on board with this. You need to get along to go along here. Okay, I'll vote for that. I bet he regrets it now. But he wants to get rid of the mail-in voting now. So what else we got here? Banning critical race theory and gender theory in schools. Hooray! Hooray! I mean, that's what Youngkin down in Virginia has done, and it was very popular. That's what he wants to do here because it's crap. Complete and utter crap. Let's see. Universal Parents' Rights Statute. He wants to pass that through the legislature. He wants to cut taxes, eliminate regulations, or at least reduce them. Let's see, cut spending. Now here's a big one. I mentioned this earlier. He wants to withdraw us, the state of Pennsylvania, from Tom Wolf's Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. What is that? This is a compact amongst all the liberal states here in the Northeast where they all get together and agree to choke the utilities in their state and force them to produce less. Basically, that's what I get out of it. In doing so, the thinking being, well, they'll produce less hot air, and that'll make everything cooler. Let's be cooler because it's too hot. So we'll make these factories produce less, and therefore less hot air, and that'll make the state of Pennsylvania cooler. Well, you know what that'll also do? Make energy more expensive. I mean, if you're producing less electricity because you don't want to produce that much hot air, you're going to produce less, and basic economics say if there's less of something and demand stays the same, price goes up. So the price of electricity is going to go up under this Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. Now, we haven't had the pleasure of living under this yet. They're just now joining this thing, Wolf is. I think he's been kind of trying to, I don't know what he's doing. You're asking me to get into the mind of a communist, and it's pretty messy in there, so I don't know. But they're just now joining this thing. He's thrown this bag of shit onto Shapiro, and he's like, what's that? Regional Gas Initiative. You know, he knows this is going to be hugely unpopular, so he's just pretending it doesn't exist, and he's not taking a position on it. Of course the goddamn guy is going to join it. If we're dumb enough to elect this guy, of course he's going to join it, and you're going to pay more. I would guess significantly more for your electricity, your heat, your what have you. You get it from a utility, it's going to be more. And that's what I want right now. With inflation through the roof, I'm already paying more. Well, it'll even be more than that. So this guy wisely, Mastriano, said, we're not doing that. This is idiotic. So he's not going to be a part of that. He wants to invest more in the coal and gas industries. He wants to explore more for oil and gas in the Marcellus Shale region. He wants to lift Wolf's regulations, taxes, and fees on drilling and mining. I'm all for that. I mean, hey, guess what Pennsylvania has a lot of? Oil and gas. Why in the hell are we not taking advantage of that? This is a huge economic advantage for this state where we could be using that money to do all sorts of things. Education, roads, what have you. We have better jobs for our citizens. More money coming into the state as far as companies wanting to be here because there's money going around. Why would we not want to be a part of that? Oh, of course, right. Climate change. We're paying through the nose right now for inflation, for gas, for energy. Why? Because of climate change? Is that really that important to you? Do you even believe it's happening, for God's sakes? I sure as hell don't. But that's me. Oh, and then lastly, the last two here. Second Amendment, he wants to make PA a constitutional carry state. What does that mean? Right now we have to get a permit to conceal carry. I can open carry and don't have to get a permission from anybody, but to conceal carry, I get a license. He's going to do away with that if the General Assembly will go along with it, where you can just carry. You want to conceal carry, you want to open carry, knock yourself out. It's up to you. No permission slip needed. And then lastly, he says he will sign the heartbeat bill from the General Assembly. That means no abortions allowed at any point in time at all, if that's the way the legislation would come from the General Assembly. If it is a heartbeat bill that says, if the fetus has any kind of heartbeat, he will sign that bill, and that will be the definition of abortion here in Pennsylvania. Now, that's unpopular. I mean, I can tell you that right now. That's unpopular, but this guy's religious, and that's what he believes. So that's how, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, because the Shapiro ads that are all over the TV and the internet have already told you that. So you know that. I mean, if that's your issue, and you don't really care how much you got to pay for gas or education or electricity and food, but you just want to preserve the right to kill your baby, then you need to vote for Josh Shapiro, because he's going to protect your right to kill your baby. This guy, Mastriano, that's not important to him. So he doesn't want you to kill your baby. So that's Mastriano there. Let's sum up. Army, Colonel, 30 years in the Army. That's pretty much been the majority of his adult life. It sounds to me like he's held some pretty responsible positions in the Army. He's I guess, I don't even know what that means. Full bird colonel. I'm not going to say that because I don't know what it means. He's a colonel. I don't think he's a colonel. He's written 3 books. That seems like something. They were all on World War I, on the strategy in the Ardennes, or not the Ardennes, the Argonne Forest, the Meuse-Argonne Forest battle. He wrote one about, I think, Sergeant York. So 3 books, numerous articles on strategy and what have you. Very religious guy, apparently. New to the state Senate, and certainly not a career politician, if you will, in that he's just been elected and he's only been in the state Senate now for, I don't think he's even been in for 3 years. How is he even where he's at, if that's what you're asking? He's basically there because no one else wants to be. When the Wolf administration locked down Pennsylvania, this was the guy that stood up front and said, this is wrong. This should not be happening. The leadership of the Republican Party, they all shrank back. The word I got from my state representative, who's a Republican, when I'm saying, what are you doing? Stop this. Go to war with this guy, Wolf. You guys aren't powerless. Shut off the funding for this guy. Take him on. He basically just said, well, now, Tom Wolf's a good man, and we're trying to negotiate with him and try to convince him that this one-size-fits-all policy is wrong. And of course, Tom Wolf just laughed at the Republicans, wasn't negotiating at all with them, or certainly not in good faith. All the while, Doug Mastriano is saying, negotiate hell. People are losing their livelihoods. People are losing their jobs with these idiotic vaccination mandates. Children are losing their childhoods by not being in school. They're never going to get that back. You're only 10 once. You're only going to be in the 5th grade once. You're losing things that cannot be replaced. And he was the one up front saying this is wrong, trying as much as a junior state senator with no backing whatsoever to organize something. And he basically made a name for himself enough that I think he helped pass, certainly, that constitutional amendment that stripped the governor's power to lock us in our homes forever, that, what you would think would be obvious, but when you have a majority on the state Supreme Court, you can do anything. In other words, I think we're going to force everybody to wear green today. Well, it seems arbitrary and wrong and unconstitutional. What do you think, Democrat state Supreme Court? Well, did the Democrat governor propose it? Well, yes, he did. Well, then that's legal. That's legal. In fact, a Democrat governor can do anything because we say so. Well, it makes no sense whatsoever. In other words, in a democracy, it's set up that, hey, we got checks and balances, and one hand kind of checks the other, unless one guy decides there's an emergency and seizes all the power for himself. That one guy can hold on to that power forever until he decides to give it up. That doesn't make any sense at all. And Mastriano, of course, knows this. Something else I would say is Mastriano has a history degree. Now, why is that important? Well, he knows what has happened in the past. He's studied what's happened in the past. So he knows that when utopists like Josh Shapiro, Tom Wolfe, John Fetterman get together and say, you know what, let's all have a group hug and we'll all share property, we'll all share production, everybody will produce according to their ability, and everybody will get paid according to their need, and it'll all work out great. Mastriano knows that's all crap, because that's just socialism, it's just communism. It's been tried, and it's been tried, and it's failed everywhere it's been tried. And usually there's a pile of bodies to show for it. Well, he knows this because he knows his history, just like I know my history. So Mastriano is well aware of the policies that are being proposed by his opponents, and he knows they're wrong. Now, what else would we say here about Doug Mastriano? If you're looking for somebody who's not in the pocket of somebody, this is probably your guy. I mean, he has really no connections to anybody. The Republican caucus, the Republican leadership here in Pennsylvania, they don't want to have anything to do with this guy. He's new. Like I said, he's only been in the state Senate for a couple of years. A handful of the old boy network here in PA have actually gone as far as endorsing Shapiro. These are the same scumbags that would vote themselves pay raises in the middle of the night without the public having a chance to see them do it or vote on it or comment on it. There was a huge outcry about that many years ago, and it was basically a bipartisan effort, but a lot of Republicans lost their jobs because of that. Well, it's a lot of the same scumbags that are endorsing Shapiro. I mean, if you're looking for an America First, I'm not a traditional Republican kind of guy. This is your guy. This is absolutely your guy. So he doesn't have any money. Again, that's where, if you're looking for somebody not beholden to somebody, nobody's funding this guy. He managed to get Ron DeSantis up here to help campaign for him. So Ron DeSantis is vouching for him. Trump's not helping him. Trump's not helping him at all. He's got no money from the federal Republican governor organization. He hasn't run one campaign ad yet because he has no money. That's largely why I'm making this video, just to try to help this guy. Who's he beholden to? Nobody. So, he's his own man. So if you're looking for that, this is your guy. So, hey, I wholeheartedly endorse this guy. I mean, to me, this would be the best governor we've had here in Pennsylvania in my memory. I'm not old enough to remember what Dick Thornburg did when he was the governor here back in the 80s. I don't quite remember that far back, but certainly in beyond that, definitely the Mastriano better than anybody else we've had. So we have an opportunity to elect a really good guy here, and I hope we take advantage of that. I really hope we do. So that's my comments on Mastriano. Next video we're going to do is going to be, who is Josh Shapiro? You never really find out who this guy is in all his ads. You don't know who he is. All you know is he's not extreme like Doug Mastriano. Really? Well, let's find out about that next time. I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech, just like Doug Mastriano does, and we'll talk again.